What is going on, guys? McRaptor here. We are about to do a review of Maneater, the new action RPG from Tripwire Interactive. We're going to show you the 5 best and worst things about Maneater and help you decide, will this game hook you in, or did Maneater hit rock bottom? Without further delay or any more horrible puns, the top 5 reasons why you should play Maneater. Number 1, sharking around the ocean, bayous, and beaches is absolutely thrilling. Launching from the surface of the ocean and catapulting on humans, boats, and beaches is just simply incredible fun. The sheer carnage in Maneater is like playing an arcade version of Grand Theft Auto, but with sharks. If you don't like that idea, I don't know who you are. Diving to the ocean floor, seeking out animal and human prey, and assaulting hunters or running away for safety are the core gameplay mechanics, and they feel really good. If you've been following Maneater's development for a while now, you've probably been very excited to try this game out. If you haven't heard of it before, though, this is the game that we didn't even know that we needed. At the time of this recording, most of the world right now is in quarantine due to COVID-19, and who couldn't use a little bit of ridiculousness to step away from your normal, boring life, stuck at home, and to jump into this crazy ocean wonderland where you just get to tear everything apart in crazy Grand Theft Auto-like fashion. Number 2 best thing about Maneater is the simple gameplay and controls. This is more of an arcade game than a shark simulator. The simple gameplay and controls flow really well with the simplicity of the game. There's no big drawn-out opening sequence or ridiculous story to catch up with before the action begins. As soon as you hit that start button, it's a wild ride until the very end. You move from one section of the game to the next, performing similar kill this or kill that quests, and then eventually fight some of the game's human and animal bosses. Most players will be able to advance through the game without any major difficulty or knowledge barriers. Target, kill, rinse, and repeat. This is not Dark Souls with sharks. You're not going to die over and over again. You're going to have a fun time ripping through the landscapes. You do get access to new abilities over time, but for the most part, you can pick this game up and instantly learn how to maneuver your Maneater in and out of every situation. You slowly gain access to these new abilities, so you have plenty of time to test out your air lunge, dodge, and other cool shark maneuvers. Number 3 best features of Maneater, upgrading your shark is highly addictive. When you start the game out, you're barely bigger than a guppy. You're a tiny shark running around, and there's alligators that are twice your size, and you feel very weak. But as you advance through the game, you get access to really cool new evolutions, as the game calls them. And these evolutions are more than just a status upgrade, although they do increase your damage and your health and things like that. They're essentially your weapons and armor in a traditional action RPG. So instead of getting a new sword, you get a new piece of armor that affects the way you do damage to hunters or to random beachgoers or boats. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can build out your shark to either poison your enemies or use lightning to stun them or just do more raw damage or have more raw tankiness. And not only that, but there's item set bonuses. So the more of these evolutions that you get with the same set, the more effective that they become. And so you start scouring all over the map looking for how you get that next item piece, or that next hunter that you have to hunt down and defeat in order to unlock the new evolution that goes into your killer apex predator set. It's really the main drive of the game is collecting and getting all these upgrades and just becoming more and more powerful. Number 4 best features of Maneater, the game looks and performs well. The textures, environments, and character models have a simple but well-defined art style. Diving to the ocean floor, you feel like you're actually underwater, and it makes for a really immersive visual experience. The colorful, slightly cartoony artwork in this game really works well with this arcade shark type game. It's not a super serious game, so it shouldn't have super serious realistic graphics. You actually feel like you're in some sort of beach game, and if it wasn't for the fact that there's a giant man-eating shark eating everybody at every single step, you'd feel like you're just on vacation. On the technical side, the game is very stable and it performs really, really well, especially for a launch title from a smaller developer. There were basically very few, if any, glitches that I encountered in this entire game. Frame rates held up really well on PC, actually. We have a fairly high-end test PC and ran everything on Ultra in 1440p, and frame rates generally didn't dip below 100. We also tested on PS4 and PS4 Pro, and while the frame rates were obviously not as strong as they were on our high-end PC, they held up remarkably well for the hardware and was still a great experience on either console or PC. Number 5, best things about Maneater. Comedy and inside jokes abound in this game. Most of the story of the game plays out centered around the reality TV show that you're participating in. The narrator, who's voiced by comedic actor Chris Parnell, ebbs and flows, quirky little puns and pop culture humor throughout the entire game. I thought that I'd personally get sick of the theme at some point, but the jokes never got stale, honestly, and that's after hours and hours of gameplay. There's even little Easter eggs from movies, TV, and other media that will make you laugh as you cruise around the ocean in search of dinner and mayhem. It really goes well with the overall theme of this game, this very action, arcadey style. If you think about it, the content of this game could be very dark and scary and foreboding, but this isn't a scary game. This isn't the Jaws of video games. This is like a fun little jaunt through what should be horrifying, but is instead just hilarious. All right, now we've gone over the 5 best things about Maneater. Now we got to go over the 5 worst things that you may want to factor into whether or not you decide to buy this game. Number 1, worst thing about Maneater, the gameplay does become very, very repetitive. Unfortunately, one of Maneater's strengths, its simplicity, is also its weakness. The gameplay revolves around a relatively simple formula of target, kill, rinse, and repeat. While there's tons of side objectives and fun human hunter bounties and apex predators that award great upgrades, ultimately the gameplay in the first hour extends all the way through the end. So whether or not you'll enjoy this really depends upon whether or not you're expecting an evolving shark experience. If you're looking for a shark simulator, this is not your game. If you're looking for arcade style, repetitive, human and animal slaughtering fun, then it probably is your game. Number 2 worst thing about Maneater, the combat lacks depth. No pun intended. The combat sequences are very satisfying, particularly when you're taking on large quantities of hunters or nasty ocean beasts. But combat in the game comes off too simple as you're several hours in. The same attacks and basic maneuvers that you used in the beginning don't really change that much in a huge way as you progress. You do get access to new power upgrades that modify your basic abilities, but there's really only a few ways to damage enemies or boats in the game. Later game bosses introduce a few new tricks that you have to deal with, but overall the combat stays mostly the same until the very end. Outside of the verticality of the game where you're diving to the ocean floor and then rushing over the ocean's surface and jumping onto boats, the combat is pretty much bite, 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 evade, bite, 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 evade, bite, 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 evade. Number 3 worst thing about Maneater, the RPG elements are severely lacking. This game's marketed as an action RPG, and I've got to say that's a bit of a stretch, even by game marketing standards. There's a ton of action. This game definitely has that down, but there's not so much RPG in this game. The upgrades you unlock are fun and worth getting, but there's nothing as complex as a full skill tree, real attribute points, or builds that you have to concern yourself with. This game is really all action and very little, if any, RPG. Number 4 worst thing about Maneater, the difficulty becomes trivial as you level up. Once you start unlocking several of the game's evolutions, your shark gains notably more powerful. And once you start getting these higher end evolutions, there's very little in the game that could really challenge you. If you're up for a fun casual experience, that's probably okay. But for those looking for a real challenge, they will be left wanting more from Maneater's difficulty. It just simply is not a very challenging game. There's very few times that you'll probably die. If you are dying to something over and over again, you're probably just underleveled, and within a few quick side quests, you'll be more than capable of taking on whatever boss or enemy you're trying to defeat. Number 5 worst thing about Maneater, you might find out that you're a complete monster IRL after playing this game. I'm only half serious about this, but Maneater will really test your inner sense of self and how much of a monster you might really be. Are you okay with endlessly roaming the beaches of Florida, gobbling up every swimming beachgoer and white-haired retiree that you can find? I mean, seriously, there's a ton of carnage in this game and you are the direct center of it. You might end up needing some serious therapy after playing Maneater, but at least it's fun, right? Alright, we went over the 5 best and worst things about Maneater, so what's the verdict? Maneater, despite its shortcomings, is a really fun action game. The main story will likely last you around 7 to 10 hours, depending on if you're a completionist or not. That's decent value. It's not a huge campaign, but it's also a lower price game at $40 USD. If value per hour is really important to you, then wait until it goes on super sale. But if you're looking for an intense pump of adrenaline while you shark up and down oceans, bayous, and beaches as a swole apex predator, then Maneater is absolutely the game for you. Regardless of its shortcomings, of which there are many, it's incredibly fun to play, and I am personally hoping for a sequel where they perfect the formula, bring in all the really fun shark man-eating things, but then put around it better systems, more complex controls and combat and complexity, and make it a real action RPG. So here's to hoping that comes to pass. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed the review of Maneater. If it was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.